My name is Soraya Bennett. I'm 36, and I've learned that when someone says they need closure, what they often mean is they never closed the door in the first place. Last Tuesday, we were having dinner at this dim Italian place my boyfriend loved. Brick walls, soft bulbs, the kind of moody lighting that made strangers look like secrets. We'd been together 2.5 years, living together for the last 18 months in my townhouse. Not perfect, but steady. I'd paid for the place, the furniture, the paint that took 2 weekends to get exactly right. He filled it with laughter, vinyl records, and the quiet promise that we were building something. I believed him. Halfway through his chicken parmigiana, he put down his fork and breathed like he was about to run a race. "So, something happened today," he said. "Daria texted me." Daria, his ex of 5 years, the one he'd loved until she cheated and burned his life down in a single afternoon, the one who still had photos on his Instagram because they're memories of who I was. He said he kept them for honesty. I kept cutting my steak and listened to the clink of metal against porcelain because my hands needed something to do. "She's been in therapy," he continued. "She wants to apologize. She needs closure." "That's nice for her," I said, sipping water, feeling the glass cold on my palm. He shifted in his seat. "I think I need to meet her tomorrow. Just coffee, just to hear her out. For closure." I set my knife down, looked up. He couldn't meet my eyes. Already defensive before I'd said anything. The script was familiar, as if he'd practiced the lines in the mirror until they felt righteous. "Closure," I repeated. "Yes. God, don't make this weird. It's literally just coffee. 1 hour max. I need this to finally move past everything." "You told me you moved past everything a year ago." "I did," he said quickly, "but proper closure would help. You understand, right? You're always so mature about these things." The waiter came by. I ordered tiramisu. He blinked, surprised. I never ordered dessert. "So you're okay with it?" he asked. "It's thoughtful of you to tell me," I said. "What time tomorrow?" 2 p.m. just at that Starbucks downtown. "The one by her office?" A flush crept up his neck. "How did you—" "You mentioned once that's where you used to meet for lunch when you dated." "Oh, yeah, it's just convenient." I smiled. "Makes sense." We finished dinner. He buzzed with nervous energy, kept squeezing my hand, whispering how amazing I was for understanding. I paid the check, drove him home, my home, where he'd been living rent-free, while he focused on his design studio. He'd sold 1 logo in 2 years. He went to bed happy. I stayed up making calls. By 6 a.m. Wednesday, while Ethan still slept, a professional moving team stood in my foyer. Not random guys with a truck, an actual outfit that specialized in discreet relocations. Cost me $800 for the rush job, but they were surgical. They packed everything that was his. Clothes, including the designer jackets I'd bought for his birthday dinners. His camera gear, mostly unused. His cologne, books, sneakers, the record player, the stack of vinyl he swore he'd alphabetize, the terrarium he never watered. All labeled, wrapped, inventoried. At 8 a.m., everything was stacked inside a climate-controlled storage unit. I paid for the first month. After that, it was on him. The facility had 24-hour access and cameras everywhere. I wasn't cruel. I was done. At 9, the locksmith arrived. Front door, back door, garage keypad. Full rekey, new deadbolts. $400 to end a cycle. At 10, I texted Ethan's sister, Emma, who I actually liked. "Hey, Emma. Heads up. Ethan and I are done. His stuff is in store safe. Unit 42B, Riverside. First month's paid. He can pick up the key with ID. Take care." Emma called immediately. I let it ring out. At noon, Ethan texted, "Heading out to meet Daria. Wish me luck with my closure." I replied, "Good luck." He sent back heart emojis. I wondered if he was sending Daria heart emojis too. At 1:30, I parked across the street from the Starbucks, not to confront anyone, just to confirm what I already knew. At 2:03, he arrived in the navy sweater I told him looked like a promise. At 2:05, Daria walked up in a cream coat, hair curled like old photographs. They hugged. Not a polite hug, a 45-second, "I remember your shampoo" kind of hug. I counted. They sat in the corner, bodies leaning in like magnets that had been fighting for years not to click. She touched his arm. He rested his hand on her knee like it lived there. At 2:47, they left together in her car. His stayed in the lot. I drove home. Correction, I drove to my home. I cleaned. I opened windows and let January cold flush out the air like an exorcism. I set his key on the counter and breathed until my pulse didn't vibrate. At 6:23 p.m., the doorbell camera lit up my TV. He tried his key 3 times. Confusion, frustration, then panic. The knocking began. "Soraya, the lock's jammed. My key won't work." I opened the door but kept the chain on. "It's not jammed." He stared. "What's going on?" "How was closure?" "What? It was fine. Why won't my key work?" "I changed the locks." "You what? Why would you?" "Your things are in storage. Store safe on Riverside, Unit 42B, first month's paid." His face went from white to red. "Are you out of your mind? Because I had coffee with Daria?" "Coffee?" I studied him. The smudge at his collar, the crease in the sweater where a hand had gripped. "You left your car at Starbucks at 2:47 and got into hers." "You were spying on me?" "I was confirming what I already knew. You don't wear your best sweater for closure. You don't wear the cologne I bought you for an apology tour. This is insane. You're being completely irrational." "Am I? Tell me what happened after coffee." We just talked more, in her car, about the past." "Where?" "Just around her apartment." Silence answered for him. "Here's what's happening," I said, voice calm like a still lake. "Your belongings are in storage. The relationship is over. Call Emma or your mother for a place to stay." "You can't just kick me out. I live here." "You're not on the lease. You don't pay rent. You're a guest whose invitation has been revoked." "I have rights, tenant rights." "You're not a tenant. You're an ex-boyfriend who needed closure with his ex. You got it. Now you need to leave." He tried a softer tone. "Soraya, come on. Nothing happened." "Then why is your collar smudged? Why were you gone 4 hours? Why is there lipstick by your jawline?" His hand flew to his face. "There's no lipstick." "You're right," I said. "There isn't now." He exhaled hard, the way men do when they realize the door they kept cracked is being shut for them. "This is punishment. This is clarity." He dropped his voice. "You're going to regret this." "No. I regret ignoring my instincts. I regret calling it growth when it was a pattern. I regret believing I had to be the cool, understanding woman when I already understood too much." He stared past me into the life he'd been living. The records, the throw blanket, the plant on the sill that only I watered. "Where am I supposed to go?" he asked. "That's thoughtful of Daria to help you figure out," I said. "She's so good at apologizing." He pressed his lips together, a flash of anger breaking through the pleading. "You're heartless." "I'm done." I closed the door, slid the chain back into place, and stood in the foyer where the house suddenly felt bigger, cleaner, mine. I watched on the monitor as he paced, called, texted, called again. He tried the handle twice more like the door would forget itself and let him in. At 7:10, he left. At 7:12, my phone lit up. Emma. Then Diane, his mother. Then a number I didn't know. I put the phone face down and made tea. Steam rose. My heartbeat slowed. I thought about paint colors and how long it had taken to choose this exact shade of quiet. I thought about the little ways I'd taught myself to be small to make him comfortable. I thought about the word closure and how it sounded like mercy, but felt like a test I hadn't agreed to take. I slept lightly, woke at 5, and watched the first blade of morning pry open the blinds. There are endings that happen in courtrooms, in hospitals, in midnight text messages. Mine happened with a locksmith receipt and a storage unit number. Clean. Documented. Unmistakable. At 7:02 a.m., a voicemail from Diane landed, full of wounded authority. At 9:17, an email with a subject line that said illegal lockout. At noon, a notification. Ethan had posted an Instagram story. Black screen, white font. Some people don't know how to be mature about closure. I laughed once. Then I started a list titled Receipts and began to write. Thursday came like an aftershock. I woke to 12 missed calls, half from Ethan's mother, half from unknown numbers that all rang with the same tone of entitlement. I poured coffee, ignored them, and opened my front door to a pale morning sky that smelled like rain and freedom. The peace didn't last. At 7:40 a.m., my phone rang again. "What is this nonsense?" Diane's voice cut through the line like static. "Ethan's hysterical. You threw him out over coffee?" "Coffee," I said, "doesn't usually last 4 hours or end with someone else's lipstick on your son's face." He said nothing happened. Then he has nothing to worry about. His things are safe in storage. Unit 42B, Riverside. He's staying with Emma, and he can't even get to work without his stuff. You're being cruel. I'm being practical. He wanted closure with Daria. He got it. We're closed too. She hung up so fast I heard the click before the anger settled in my chest. By 9, the doorbell camera pinged. Ethan stood on my porch with Emma and some guy I didn't recognize. Short, nervous, trying to look intimidating. They pressed the bell for 10 minutes straight while I watched from my office downtown on my phone screen. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, appeared like divine intervention. 68, retired schoolteacher, strict voice that could make dogs sit still. She crossed her arms. What's all this racket? Ethan's voice rose. I live here. She changed the locks. Mrs. Patterson frowned. No, dear, you stayed here. I've seen you coming and going, but the mail only has Soraya's name. That makes this her house. Now leave before I call the police. Emma tugged on Ethan's sleeve, murmured something I couldn't catch. The unknown guy muttered, This is crazy, before they all left. At noon, my insurance company called. Ms. Bennett, we received a claim from someone identifying as your spouse trying to access your homeowner's policy. Let me guess, I said. Ethan? Yes, ma'am, we flagged it as suspicious. Thank you. Please note it as fraud. I hung up. The first laugh I'd had in days escaped like air from a balloon. At 2 p.m., Ethan's social media post went up. When you give someone 3 years of your life and they throw you out because of jealousy, some women can't handle maturity. Sometimes love isn't enough when ego takes over. His friends rallied. She's ungrateful. You deserve better, bro. She's crazy. But the best comment came from my coworker, who followed both of us by accident. Didn't you cheat on your last girlfriend with Daria? The comment vanished in minutes. I almost wished it had stayed. By evening, my phone filled with messages from mutual acquaintances asking, what really happened? I had one simple response ready. He met his ex for closure, left his car at Starbucks, and came home 4 hours later with smudged lipstick. Draw your own conclusions. After that, silence. But peace never lasts long when guilt gets bored. At 7 p.m., Daria posted a selfie. Same Starbucks background, captioned, Some doors close so better ones can open. They were both in it, barely touching, like a performance for forgiveness. I almost admired the choreography. By Friday morning, things went from pathetic to legal. An email arrived from a man named Mitchell Frost, his signature block longer than the message. My client, Mr. Ethan Clark, has retained me regarding an illegal eviction from his established residence. He retains tenancy rights despite no formal lease. We demand immediate reinstatement and $5,000 in damages for emotional distress. I forwarded it to Marla, my lawyer, an old college friend who once specialized in messy breakups before switching to property law. She called laughing so hard she could barely speak. Established residence? He'd have to prove he's been there 30 days with mail in his name, which he doesn't. You packed his stuff and paid storage. He has nothing. Should I reply? Oh, I'll reply. Marla's email was art. Mr. Frost, your client was a guest. No rent was paid, no lease exists, and no mail was received in his name. His belongings were professionally packed and stored at my client's expense. Documentation of voluntary departure is available. Further baseless threats will be considered harassment. Ethan didn't respond, but someone else did. Saturday morning, I caught them on my doorbell feed again. Ethan and a police officer. I stepped outside before they knocked. Officer, I said calmly, how can I help you? The officer nodded politely. We received a report of an illegal lockout. Ethan crossed his arms behind him, smug. I handed the officer my deed, proof of ownership, and the storage receipt. He's not on the lease, never paid rent. His belongings are stored safely. The officer looked around, stepped inside briefly, and came back out. Sir, there's nothing of yours visible. This seems civil. You'll need to leave. Ethan's jaw tightened. She's lying. I lived here. Then you should have documentation, the officer said evenly. Do you? Ethan didn't. You need to leave, or I'll have to cite you for harassment. Ethan turned red, muttered something under his breath, and stomped to the car. Emma lingered, mortified. Soraya, I'm sorry. He's not himself lately. I think he's exactly himself, I said. She nodded quietly and got in the car. At 4 p.m., my phone buzzed again. A new post from Daria. When people show you who they are, believe them. Feeling grateful for new beginnings with someone who deserves me. The photo? Ethan's arm draped around her shoulders, both smiling like karma forgot their names. I didn't respond, but I posted one story of my own. When someone says they need closure, remember, doors close for a reason. By Sunday morning, her post was deleted. His too. Still, I knew this wasn't over. Not with Ethan. Not with a man who thought consequences were negotiable. That night, I sat by my window and watched the rain streak the glass. I should have felt triumphant, maybe even free. Instead, I felt alert. Because men like Ethan didn't vanish when you closed the door. They knocked harder. They always knocked harder. Monday morning felt deceptively calm. Gray light, quiet coffee, the hum of normalcies that pretends to be peace before the next storm. But by 8:15 a.m., the storm had a name again. Ethan. He texted first. "You've taken this way too far. I just wanted honesty between us." I didn't respond. He followed up. "You'll regret this, Soraya. I never cheated." 10 minutes later, my HR manager called. "Hey, Soraya, we got an anonymous email this morning claiming you've been using company time to run a side hustle. Do you want to come in and clarify something?" I closed my eyes. Let me guess. The email had no proof, just a story about me being unstable and manipulative. There was silence. "So, you know who sent it?" "I have an idea." "We're ignoring it. Just wanted you to be aware." I thanked her, hung up, and felt that quiet tremor of rage that sits behind your ribs. The one that doesn't scream, it plans. At 10 a.m., my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Beavis, a guy I'd met a year before Ethan but never dated, an old friend I'd recently reconnected with online. He texted, "Hey, just FYI, Ethan messaged me on Instagram, said you're having a breakdown. Wanted to warn me you're dangerous. Sound familiar?" I almost laughed. "Thanks for the warning," I replied. He's running out of people to manipulate. "Want to grab coffee later?" he asked. I typed back, "Maybe." Because maybe was safer than yes when the ghosts of your past still had keys to your peace. That afternoon, Ethan posted again, this time a quote card with white text over a sunset background. "Sometimes the people you love most turn into strangers overnight." Beneath it, Daria commented a single heart emoji. His mother added a prayer hands emoji. I didn't block them. I wanted witnesses. By Wednesday, he'd escalated. Emma called me, her voice tight. "Soraya, he's losing it. He keeps saying you're lying, that you made this all up to look good online. He's been calling Daria nonstop. They're already fighting." "What are they fighting about?" "Apparently she found out you weren't the first woman he needed closure with." "Let me guess, Starbucks?" Emma sighed. "You're not wrong." For the first time all week, I smiled. Later that night, while I was sorting receipts for work, my phone buzzed again. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. A woman's voice. "Is this Soraya?" "Yes." "This is Detective Morrison with the local precinct. We received a complaint from an Ethan Clark alleging property theft. Says you're withholding his belongings." I breathed through the disbelief. "Detective, his belongings are in a paid storage unit. I have the receipt, contract, and proof of notice. Would you like copies?" A pause, then the faintest trace of a sigh. "That won't be necessary, Ms. Bennett. From what you're saying, this sounds like a civil matter, not theft." "It is. He's just trying to harass me." "Understood. We'll note it. If he contacts you again, let us know." I thanked him and hung up, then sank into the couch. My fingers trembled for the first time. Not from fear, from exhaustion. The kind that comes when someone keeps rewriting the story of your life and calling it truth. Thursday morning, 9:00 a.m. A new email. Subject: Let's be adults. From Ethan. "I can't believe you'd humiliate me like this. You've turned everyone against me. I only met Daria for closure. She means nothing. I've realized what I lost. Let's talk, please." I stared at it, then replied with 2 words. "Talk to Marla." At noon, Marla called laughing. "So he actually emailed you? Perfect. I'll send that to the detective. It shows he admits to the meeting." "Can he really be that stupid?" "Oh, he's not stupid," she said. "He's arrogant. There's a difference. Arrogant men always think they can talk their way out of evidence." By evening, another twist. A Venmo request from Ethan for $1,847. The note read, "Half of shared expenses for last month. Utilities, groceries, and emotional damage." I declined and blocked him. At 6:15, Emma called again. "He's at Mom's now. She's crying because you ruined the family. He's talking about suing you for defamation." I laughed, tired and sharp. Let him. Every lie he tells is another receipt in my favor. Beavis texted that night. "Still want that coffee?" I looked at the screen for a long time before replying. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m. at the Riverside Cafe." When I arrived, he was already there. Tall, calm, kind eyes that didn't dart around like Ethan's always had. We talked about work, books, everything except the storm behind me. At the end, he said, "You know what the saddest thing is about closure?" "What?" It's not about closing doors. It's about reopening old wounds just to see if they still bleed. I exhaled, a sound that felt like release. When I got home, I checked my doorbell camera. Ethan had been there that morning, standing on my porch at 8:57 a.m., holding a small box, looking at the house like he was remembering how it used to feel to belong somewhere. He didn't knock. He just left the box and walked away. Inside was the house key I'd taken from his ring months ago, the one he'd begged to keep for emergencies. It was bent, warped like it had been forced into a lock one too many times. No note, just the key. A final attempt to open something that was already sealed. Saturday morning arrived quiet and heavy, the kind of stillness that feels like the world holding its breath before a confession. I made coffee, stepped out onto the porch, and stared at the warped key sitting on the railing where I'd left it. It caught the light in a strange way, like something pretending to still have purpose. At 8:12 a.m., my phone vibrated again. This time, it was Emma. Her voice was small. "Soraya, I think you should know. Ethan's not okay." "What do you mean?" "He's unraveling. Mom kicked him out last night. He's been drinking, calling Daria nonstop. She blocked him, and now he's saying it's all your fault. He said if he can't fix this, he doesn't see the point anymore." I froze, coffee turning cold in my hand. Is he threatening to hurt himself? I don't know. He said something like, "She took everything from me, even my name." Then he hung up. I rubbed my temple. "Emma, call the police. Tell them to do a welfare check. Don't call me again about him, please." She started to protest, but I hung up. I'd done enough saving for one lifetime. By noon, a police officer called to confirm Ethan had been found at a friend's place, alive, just angry. Relief mixed with frustration, that familiar cocktail of, I'm glad he's okay, but why am I still the one feeling responsible? I spent the rest of the afternoon cleaning, scrubbing the floor like maybe I could erase the memories trapped in the grout. At 5 p.m., another message came, not from Emma, not from Diane, from Daria. "I don't know you, Soraya, but I think you deserve to hear this. Ethan told me you were controlling and emotionally unstable. Said you kicked him out because you hate other women. I believed him, until last night. He showed up drunk, screaming at me, calling me by your name. I blocked him. I'm sorry." I stared at the message, my breath caught somewhere between anger and pity. "Thank you for telling me," I typed back. "He's been spinning lies for a long time. You did the right thing." "You're stronger than me," she replied. I kept letting him back in. I didn't answer. Some truths didn't need words. They just needed distance. Sunday morning, I found the courage to visit my favorite spot near the river, a place I hadn't gone since before the chaos started. The breeze carried the smell of wet earth, and for the first time in months, I could breathe without the weight of someone else's story pressing against my lungs. When I got home, there was an envelope taped to my front door. My stomach turned. No address, no stamp, just my name in Ethan's handwriting. Inside, 3 things. A photo of us from 2 summers ago, smiling at a street fair. A handwritten note. A receipt for 1 month's rent transferred to my account, dated 3 days before everything happened. The note read, "You win. I hope you're proud. Everyone thinks I'm a monster because of you. I just wanted you to understand that I loved you, even when you didn't deserve it. Maybe one day you'll realize you overreacted. Maybe one day you'll regret it." I folded the letter once, then again, and dropped it into the trash. At 8 p.m., my doorbell camera went off again. I checked my phone. There he was, Ethan, standing at the gate. Drunk, disheveled, hair unkempt, eyes bloodshot. He shouted, "Soraya, I need to talk to you." I stayed inside, silent. The camera caught everything. He pounded the gate, muttering, pacing. "Why are you doing this? You ruined me. You owe me. I made you who you are." The pounding got louder. I called the police, voice steady, rehearsed by now. "Hi, yes, this is Soraya Bennett. I have an active police report on harassment from Ethan Clark. He's outside my house right now, trespassing." "Stay inside, ma'am. Officers are on the way." 5 minutes later, flashing lights cut through the dark. 2 officers approached. Ethan tried to argue, waving his arms, yelling that I was manipulating the situation. Then one officer gestured toward the camera mounted above my door. They handcuffed him quietly. I watched from the window, heart thudding, until the sound of sirens faded. The next morning, Marla called. "He's in custody overnight. You'll have a restraining order by noon." When the paperwork came through, it felt less like victory and more like oxygen, a fragile kind. For the first time in months, my phone stayed silent. Weeks passed. The world adjusted around the absence of his noise. I redecorated, repainted, filled the empty spaces with color instead of caution. Emma texted sometimes, short, careful messages. He's in therapy now. He's trying to get better. Mom's still angry, but I'm proud of you. I never replied, but I read every word. By the end of spring, I found myself standing in the storage unit, his boxes still there, untouched. After 90 days, the facility sent me a notice. Unclaimed property subject to auction. I stared at the stack of boxes, then at the small tag on the front labeled Clark. I told the manager, "Sell it. Donate the proceeds to a shelter." He nodded. As I walked out, sunlight hit the concrete just right. Warm, golden, final. Sometimes closure doesn't come from conversation or forgiveness. Sometimes it comes from watching someone's boxes leave your life for good. That night, I texted Beavis. "Dinner? I owe you that coffee." He replied instantly. "Only if you promise not to pack my stuff in storage after." I smiled. No promises. Summer stretched wide and merciful. The air smelled of second chances, faint citrus, warm pavement, the quiet hum of life after surviving someone else's storm. I hadn't realized how starved I'd been for stillness until it finally arrived. It had been 2 months since Ethan's arrest and the restraining order. 2 months since I'd stopped waking up expecting the next crisis. 2 months of slow mornings, of watering the garden barefoot, of hearing only my own footsteps in the house that had once echoed with uncertainty. Beavis became a constant presence, not the loud, consuming kind Ethan had been, but the steady kind, the kind that didn't demand space, just shared it. He never asked about Ethan, never asked what I'd learned or what I regretted. He simply made me coffee in the mornings and let me laugh again without asking why. But peace is never just peace when you've lived through chaos. It always has edges. On a Tuesday evening, as I was closing my laptop, my phone buzzed with an email from Emma. Subject line, "You need to know this." Inside was a scanned document, an excerpt from Ethan's therapy journal he'd apparently shown her, claiming it was proof that he was trying to make amends. It read, "I used to think I lost everything because of Soraya, but the truth is I destroyed everything long before she ever closed the door. She just gave me the ending I'd been begging for." I sat there staring at the words. The irony of him finally seeing it, the thing I'd screamed in silence for months, didn't feel like victory. It felt like a sigh that had been waiting its whole life to escape. "He's better," Emma wrote beneath the scan. "Different. He wanted you to have this. He knows you won't reply, but he said to tell you he finally understands." I didn't respond to Emma's email. Instead, I went out back where the evening light poured through the trees, soft and forgiving. The wind lifted the hem of my dress like a whisper. For the first time, I whispered back, "I forgive you, but not for you, for me." That night, Beavis noticed something in my face, something lighter, something unburdened. "You look like you just put down a weight you forgot you were carrying," he said. "Maybe I did," I answered. "Maybe it wasn't mine to carry anymore." He smiled. "That's my girl." We spent the next weekend repainting the spare room. The same room where Ethan once kept boxes of half-finished projects, grand ideas, and excuses. The room that had been empty for months. Now it became something new, our space. Beavis brought in a bookshelf, and I stacked it with things I loved. Travel guides, poetry, little pieces of the woman I'd buried under compromise. On the highest shelf, I placed one small wooden box. Inside it, the warped key Ethan had left behind. Not as a keepsake, as a reminder. A reminder that love shouldn't feel like surveillance, that trust isn't supposed to sound like negotiation, that closure doesn't always come wrapped in apology. It comes when you stop reopening the wound. Weeks later, as I left for work, I saw Mrs. Patterson, my neighbor, tending to her roses. She smiled, waved, and said, "House looks happy again." "It is," I said. Sometimes happiness isn't fireworks. It's the quiet hum of safety. The freedom of walking through your own front door and knowing every lock, every choice, every moment belongs entirely to you. Later that evening, I found one final message in my inbox, anonymous. But the words were familiar, the cadence too precise to mistake. "You were right to leave. I see that now. I hope life is kind to you. I hope you find the peace I never could. E." I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. Instead, I closed my laptop, stepped out to the porch, and watched the sunset melt gold across the sky. Peace, I realized, isn't the absence of what hurt you. It's learning to breathe in a world where the hurt no longer dictates the air. I took a deep breath. The light dimmed. The crickets started. And for the first time in years, the story felt truly, finally,